The twin moons of Kepler, 442b, cast their silver glow through the grimy windows of Scarlet's tavern, illuminating dust motes that danced like tiny spacecraft in the stale air. She wiped down the bar top with a rag that had seen better decades, her movements automatic after 15 years of running this establishment at the edge of the galaxy's most forgotten trading post. Another round, sweetheart, called a Thracian merchant, his forearms waving currency chips in the smoky air. Scarlet nodded, pouring the viscous blue liquid that passed for alcohol in this corner of space. But her mind was elsewhere, on the small alley behind her tavern, where an old alien waited in the shadows like he did every night. She'd first seen him 3 months ago, a Calthorian elder, his once proud scales now dulled to ash gray, his ceremonial robes tattered and stained. The Calthorians were a proud warrior race, conquerors of a dozen systems. But this one looked defeated by time itself. He'd been rummaging through her waste disposal unit, searching for scraps. Something in Scarlet's human heart, that stubborn, illogical organ, had twisted at the sight. That night, she'd brought him a full plate of Terran stew. His eyes, those ancient golden eyes, had widened with a mixture of gratitude and shame that transcended species. He'd eaten in silence, and she'd returned inside without a word. That it became their ritual. Every evening, after the last drunk stumbled out, and before she locked up, Scarlet would prepare a meal. Nothing fancy, just whatever the kitchen had left. She'd slip out the back door, leave it on the old crate they'd wordlessly designated as his table, and exchange a brief nod with the old warrior before returning inside. She never asked his name. He never offered it. Some things were better left unspoken. Julian, her human business partner and the tavern's cook, had noticed after the first week. "You're feeding him again," he'd said, not looking up from the account books. "Mind your business, Julian. It is my business. That's profit you're giving away." "Then take it from my share," Scarlet had snapped, her green eyes flashing with defiance. Julian had simply sighed, but the next night, she'd noticed the portions were larger. He never mentioned it again, but she'd caught him sometimes, watching through the back window as the old Calthorian ate, a strange expression on his weathered face. Tonight felt different. Scarlet couldn't explain it. Maybe it was the way the old alien scales seemed even duller, or how his hands trembled more than usual as he accepted the plate. He looked at her for a long moment, and she thought she saw something like goodbye in those golden eyes. "You take care," she said softly, breaking their unspoken rule of silence. He bowed his head, a gesture of profound respect in Calthorian culture. Then he disappeared into the shadows. Scarlet was closing up when she heard them. The low hum of expensive engines, completely out of place in this decrepit corner of the station. She stepped outside and froze. Two sleek black SUVs, actual Earth-manufactured vehicles, worth more than her tavern 10 times over, sat in the narrow alley. Their doors opened in perfect synchronization, and figures emerged. For Calthorians in pristine military dress, their scales gleaming crimson and gold in the moonlight, their armor marked with symbols of the highest ranks, and between them, cleaned and dressed in royal robes that shimmered with embedded star metal, stood the old alien she'd been feeding. To Scarlet's heart hammered. Had she been harboring some criminal? Was she about to be arrested by an alien military power for aiding a fugitive? The old Calthorian approached her, and the soldiers fell back with precision. Up close, clean and properly dressed, she could see the scars of 1,000 battles, the bearing of someone who'd commanded fleets. 3 months ago, he began, his voice carrying the weight of authority, "I was dying. Not from illness, but from shame. Was High Commander Zekthar of the Calthorian Fifth Fleet. I lost a war. An impossible war against an enemy we could not defeat. 300,000 souls under my command, gone in 6 days. By Calthorian law, a commander who loses so catastrophically must die by his own hand or live as Korshath, the dishonored, stripped of name and rank." He paused, his golden eyes meeting hers. "I chose dishonor. I chose to live as nothing, to beg and starve, because I was a coward. I wandered the galaxy, seeking death while lacking the courage to claim it." Scarlet's throat tightened. Julian had emerged from the tavern and stood beside her now, listening in silence. And then a human, a species we Calthorians barely acknowledge, a race of primitives who only reached the stars a century ago. She fed me. Not once, in charity, but every day. She asked nothing. She judged nothing. She simply cared. Zekthar's voice cracked. She reminded me that honor is not found in victory or death, but in compassion. That strength is not just in conquest, but in kindness. Very human ideas. Illogical ideas. And yet, he straightened, and suddenly she saw not the broken old alien, but the commander he'd been. The Calthorian Council has debated my fate for months. Tonight, they ruled. They have seen the surveillance footage. Yes, we were watching, of your actions. They say that any being worthy of such loyalty from a human, such dedication without expectation of reward, cannot be without honor. I am restored to my rank. But more than that, I am restored to myself. One of the soldiers stepped forward, carrying an ornate box. Zekthar opened it, revealing a medal that gleamed with starlight. This is the Star of Korhatha, the highest honor a Calthorian can bestow upon a non-Calthorian. It has been awarded only 12 times in our 3,000-year history. Scarlet, keeper of taverns and guardian of the forgotten, we name you Korhatha Shurnar, honor friend of the Calthorian people. Scarlet stared at the medal, then at the old warrior, then at Julian, who had tears in his eyes. I just gave you food, she whispered. You gave me more than food, Zekthar replied. You gave me humanity. And now, all Calthorians will know. Humans are not primitives. They are not weak. They are the species that sees honor in feeding the dishonored, strength in kindness, and victory in compassion. That is why humanity will endure when empires fall. He pinned the medal to her chest, his movements formal and reverent. Then he bowed, a full Calthorian bow, forehead to the ground, and his soldiers followed suit. As the SUVs departed, Scarlet stood in the alley, the weight of starlight metal on her chest, Julian's hand finding hers in the darkness. You know, Julian said finally, this is absolutely going to ruin our reputation as a dive bar. Scarlet laughed, tears streaming down her face. Humanity, fuck yeah, she whispered to the stars, and somewhere in the galaxy, an empire learned that the greatest strength lies not in weapons, but in a simple plate of food shared with a stranger in the dark. The end.